Thanks for joining us here on Joy 99.7 FM for tonight's edition of Newsnight. And headlines on Newsnight is brought to you by Eden Heights. Eden Heights, welcome home. And in this edition, even before the new curriculum begins to sink in, it is imagined that pupils starting from age 4 will from next term be introduced to a comprehensive sexuality education program. We'll hear mixed reactions from parents on this matter.
5, I don't know. They might even misinterpret the whole thing and then it becomes a different issue altogether.
No. 12, it's okay. Even let's take it 10.
Joining us as a copy of the guidelines for comprehensive sexuality education in Ghana. We'll dig into it. Also, as government announces today that security agencies have identified persons of interest in its investigation into the alleged coup plot, security analyst Adam Bona says the suspicion should be described as an assassination or terror plot.
Can we not limit this thing to taking the life of one person? Overthrowing government means you are toppling either another military government or a democratically elected government.
Workers of Great Consolidated Diamond Company back government takeover from Jospon Group as they decry poor state of affairs, including unavailability of equipment and electricity.
Now that government has taken over, we want you to find investors who will boost business here.
Boss, me buy the machines, buy the machines.
No power.
And in business, Citi makes some marginal gains following Bank of Ghana's planned forward sales of Forex.
A Ghana Football Association presidential aspirant Amanda Clinton says she's unfazed by the so-called Ghana Football Mafia. Details later in sports.
We'll head to Takrady also as police arrest a person possessing 2 human skulls. And later in the bulletin, we'll also hear from a gynecologist on how to deal with nausea during pregnancies. All that and more here on Newsnight with me, Emefa Apau. Do join us with your thoughts and comments via WhatsApp on 0244 340 437. We settle for the details now here on Newsnight. And Newsnight is brought to you by Puma Card from Puma Energy. Cash free convenience. Now, tonight, Joy News is learning that starting from next term, pupils from age 4 will be introduced to a comprehensive sexuality reproductive health education in Ghanaian public schools. Officials say the subject content would, however, be age appropriate, so the toddlers will be empowered with values that will protect them from sexual harassment. Some activists as well as parents have already begun kicking against it, asking that it is removed totally from the curriculum. Joining us as a copy of the guidelines of the teaching document, and we'll get into it shortly. But first, listen to Advocacy Officer of PPAG, Akaji Yeri Atta Binori Joshua, making a case for the course on the Super Morning Show today.
Where in this country do we talk about these things? And where do we find a lot of young people? They are in school. And if you don't want to introduce comprehensive sexuality education to expose young people to this scientifically accurate information, culturally responsive, because we are looking at the cultural context, and it should respond to the needs of the people within the context. And it's age appropriate. You can't go and be talking to a 10-year-old girl about abortion. When you look at the curriculum, we have a manual. If you look at the curriculum, the age to start talking about comprehensive sexuality education is at age 5. And at that age, you talk about values, personal hygiene. Don't you think a 5-year-old should know about values? Personal values, family values, community values. Don't you think they should know? Don't you think they should know personal hygiene? Don't you think they should know that if someone touches this part, it's private? Don't let anyone touch. If someone touches, you tell your mom, you tell your teacher, you tell your dad. Don't you think people should know about these things?
So that's the Advocacy Officer of PPAG, Akaji Yeri Atta Binori Joshua there. Like I said, I have a copy of the guidelines for comprehensive sexuality education in Ghana, and it's from the government of Ghana, and it's in support. UNFPA is supporting that, and this document, it's a 25-page document, and we'll be delving into it. And like I said, from age 4 to 5 years at preschool level. They have Module 1, Session 1, and they'll be talking about what we believe in, how we interact, and Module 2, Session 1 at the same age at the preschool level. They'll be talking about personal hygiene 1, oral hygiene, and then it goes all the way to SHS 3, which is 17 years, where they'll be talking about making changes in our lives and the world across us. So at JHS 1, for instance, I'm particularly interested in that because I have a daughter at that level. And in Module 1, Session 4, for instance, they'll be talking about norms in interpersonal relationships. Then they'll get to talk about sources for SRH services, seeking services, and then fertility regulation. They'll also talk about abstinence, contraceptives, and other methods. Then they get to talk about unintended pregnancy and abortion. Then they talk about human rights. Then they also talk about sexual and reproductive health rights. For age 8, for instance, 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, 9 years, then they will be talking about human growth and development life cycle, knowing about one's body, sexual and reproductive organs, then seeking healthcare, developing self-esteem, leadership skills 1. Then they will talk about population of Ghana as well. They'll talk about puberty, changes as we grow, relationships, friendship, dating, and courtship as well. They will talk about those ones as well. And then they will talk about reflecting on our attitudes, personal hygiene 2, body hygiene, roles and responsibilities as a child. But I don't know at all when it comes to our curriculum, but all we are told is that it's going to happen from next term. But the man who knows it all is the Executive Secretary for the National Council for Curriculum Assessment, NACA, Dr. Prince Ama. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening to your church listeners.
I'm talking about this document I'm sure you cited, have you? Guidelines for Comprehensive Sexuality Education in Ghana.
Yes. The National Council for Curriculum and Assessment was part or had a representative on the initial committee that was constituted by the National Population Council in collaboration with the Ghana Health Service and then the United Nations Population Fund. So we have been part of the process in developing a guideline on comprehensive sexuality education.
So what is this about? Because a lot of parents have begun talking about it, because we are told that from preschool level, that is 4 years, then they start to talk about comprehensive sexuality education. Educate me on this.
Well, I think that the issue of CSE is not alien to us. They have come in different forms. From the 1970s up to date, we have had civic education, we have had social studies, we have had life skills. In all these subjects, we have had all the aspects and concepts of CSE in there. So there's completely nothing new, except that it has metamorphosed into a certain name called CSE. But they're already in our classrooms. It is not something that is going to be started in September, as you seem to suggest. It's something that the children are already learning in our schools. If you look at the social studies curriculum, you will see areas of the reproductive organs of the male, that of the female, and issues around adolescent reproductive health. So these are concepts that all of us learned while we were in school. And it is not completely different from the new nomenclature that it has adopted.
So what you're telling me is that children 10 years old in primary 5, for instance, are already learning about relationships, friendship, dating, and courtship. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that the concepts in the CSE are something that are incorporated in aspects of our curriculum at different levels and different subjects. They are taught interdisciplinary form, self-identity and knowing about our community, the values and attitudes, personal hygiene, and roles and responsibility as a child. All these are already.
I've heard you on that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I am particularly interested in what I'm seeing, that these children age 10 are supposed to be taught about friendship, dating, and courtship. And I want you to clarify that. Is that the case? Because you're saying that it's nothing new. They are already learning about that. I'm particularly interested because I have a daughter around that age as well, but I didn't know that their teachers are teaching her about courtship and dating.
I think that in the subject areas, they are likely to learn something about, as young people, as they grow, the changes that occur, the personal and interpersonal relationships. I'm sure that we have something like that in our school system currently.
So we've already heard, at least when we heard this for the first time today, it looks like when we introduced the new curriculum, none of the parents that we've spoken to, for instance, or even some teachers and civil society organizations seem to know that we have this comprehensive sexuality education as part of the introduction of the new curriculum. And you're saying it is nothing new?
I am making this point, and I've tried to clarify that the curriculum that we have in the system has nothing called comprehensive sexuality education. I'm saying that the aspect that and the stuff that you see in the guidelines, and the guidelines are not curriculum. Guidelines are not content. Guidelines are, parameters that have been set for anybody who wants to teach children in our context about reproductive health, what areas that they could look at and not to exceed that. You see, CSC has different underpinnings in different contexts, like social studies now in Ghana. Our social studies is different from social studies in America. American social studies talks about our history. Our social studies, we talk about different things altogether. So you can have CSC in other contexts, which is relevant to their cultural values and attitudes and dispositions. Our CSC that we have is very, very aligned and takes closer account of our cultural identity and historical antecedents and heritage. So that is the understanding that our parents need to know and to understand clearly that this is not something coming with the new curriculum. It's already in existence. And the guidelines you have seen is clearly a document to guide any extracurricular activities relating to anything on sexuality education. So that nobody comes from elsewhere and begin to introduce concepts that are alien to our culture and then undermine our cultural values.
Exactly what I was coming to, because one parent, for instance, that we spoke to raised this issue about homosexuality, for instance, and knowing that what if people or teachers or some teachers introduce this alien culture to our children? There are guidelines in place for that, you're saying?
Exactly. We cannot even talk about that because Ghana as a country, we have made it clear, abundantly clear, to all our partners and stakeholders that there are certain, activities that do not align with our cultural values. And we detect those activities, including issues relating to same-sex gays and lesbianism. These are things that have been clearly articulated by leadership of this country, from both the previous government and the current government. And therefore, the CSC guidelines clearly is defined within the context of our cultural values, and it is culturally sensitive. In fact, let me make an important point. If you look at the guidelines that you have, in Objective 2, I think it should be at page 3 thereabouts. Look at page 3.
Exactly.
Good. I want to quote a letter that Ghana Education Service wrote to NACA. The letter says, and it was dated on 29th April. And it says, the management of Ghana Education Service has studied the guidelines for comprehensive sexuality education in Ghana and has agreed that in order for the guidelines to be accepted for use in Ghana Education Service, the phrase, and I quote the phrase, within the acceptable cultural values and norms of the Ghanaian society, should be added to the third objective on page 3. And look at the third objective of page 3. So the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, there's a concept called CSE. It is not a subject. It's a cross-cutting issue. It is not being introduced under the new curriculum. It is something already in existence. We want to avoid a situation whereby an entity, an institution somewhere will get into our country and begin to introduce some concepts that are alien to our culture, and therefore we are setting parameters through this policy guidelines that they must live within. Teachers, service users of our curriculum must live within the context of the guidelines we have provided. And we have strengthened it by saying that everything that is being done must be within acceptable cultural values and norms of our Ghanaian society. And so CSE is absolutely not in any way to promote anything alien to us.
Okay. We're grateful for your time. That's quite some assurance there. That's the Executive Secretary for the National Council for Curriculum Assessment, NACA, Dr. Prince Ama. But we can hear the reaction of some parents.
Oh, yes. Because that early child, they will grow earlier with it. So it's better you do it that way.
The idea is, it will be good.
Why?
Yeah, they are too small. Yes, they are too small. Because I have one. It can't. No. 12. It's okay. Even let's take it 10. 10, 12. That's all. Abba, it's too small.
At 5, they are very mature. They are very young, and I don't think they can even. They have a clue about what they are being taught. So I think they should just let them be matured enough. Maybe from one going will be okay. Their minds are a little developed and they can understand. But 5, I don't know. They might even misinterpret the whole thing and then it becomes a different issue altogether. I don't know. Yes, depending on the environment they are coming from, it can affect them. So if they are matured enough, it will be okay.
I don't think it is a good initiative. At that stage, they are too young to understand whatever they are going to be taught. I strongly oppose this.
Some parents there, you're also a parent, you're a guardian, you're listening, you have thoughts and comments. I have loads of them on the WhatsApp console already. You can also send yours via WhatsApp on 0244-340-437. But let's stay a while longer on children, because children of school-going age begging for food or selling on the streets of Accra is a daily spectacle, but that could soon change as President Akufo-Addo announces an end to all forms of child marriage, trafficking and slave-like activities affecting the independence and growth of the Ghanaian child. The initiative, dubbed Operation Get Off the Streets for a Better Life, aims to provide children an atmosphere that encourage growth and proper development. Addressing the 30th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, President Akufo-Addo says government, through the free education program in the basic education category, is riding the Ghanaian society, or is getting rid of poverty in the Ghanaian society.
Knowledge, and more knowledge is the only way by which we can rid our society of ignorance, poverty, and disease, and thereby accelerate progress towards a better future for our children. We have ensured in Ghana that poverty is no longer a stumbling block to the access of education by our children by a policy of free senior high school. I'm glad that we're now able to say that education in the public sector is free from kindergarten to senior high school, which we have redefined as basic education. This initiative has resulted in a significant increase in pupil enrollment, with 1.2 million children currently in senior high school, the highest in our nation's history. We've also made considerable progress in reducing childhood mortality and morbidity through effective national immunization campaigns and universal coverage of primary health care for all Ghanaians, particularly children. We are committed to ending child marriage and eradicating all forms of child labor, trafficking, and slave-like practices in line with SDG 8. Quote, Operation Get Off the Street Now for a Better Life, unquote, has been initiated, and the Ghana Child Labor Monitoring Information System has been reactivated.
You heard the President Akufo-Addo, but the Ghanaian child wants more. Listen to 10-year-old Gile Hackman responding to the President's initiative at the United Nations UNICEF program.
Today, I represent the voices of Ghanaian children and indeed all children of Africa. We thank the United Nations and world leaders for the progress made so far in advancing the rights and needs of children everywhere. Yes, we have made some progress, but much more needs to be done for children living in poverty and neglect, children living in war and conflict situations, and children living in refugee and migrant communities. On the daily news, I see scary and troubling images and hear terrible stories of the condition that these children, through no fault of theirs, are made to endure. I see the effects of famine on children, and I also see those children whose future is jeopardized due to negative cultural practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation. As the great African icon President Nelson Mandela once stated, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats its children. As we commemorate 30 years of the CRC, we call on the world to recommit to the convention and to take necessary steps to protect and safeguard children.
You have Gile Hackman, a 10-year-old there, speaking on behalf of Ghanaian children at the UNICEF program that was also attended by President Akufo-Addo. Now, away from children, let's talk about security, because the country's security agencies investigating the alleged coup plot against the presidency have identified more individuals who government says are persons of interest in the conspiracy. Police prosecutors have already charged 3 men, including the alleged mastermind, Dr. Yao McPalm, with 5 charges, including conspiracy to manufacture ammunition without lawful authority and possession of firearms without lawful excuse. Unspecified number of military men, also said to be collaborators, are being interrogated. Ahead of Joy News Desk, Gifty Andro-Appiah will join us shortly with what we know so far. But first, let's hear from the Deputy Information Minister, Pius Hajide.
We want to discourage strongly attempts by sections of our population, especially on social media and even sometimes in traditional media, by self-acclaimed security and intelligence experts to attempt to ridicule what information the government has put out. This is a result of sustained surveillance. We all know, history reminds us, that the assassination of the former president of the United States of America, John F. Kennedy, took a bullet. Just one person with a gun was arrested. Again, the assassination attempt on former President Ronald Reagan, it took one person with one gun who fired one bullet to attempt to assassinate President Ronald Reagan. And so, well, I take your suggestion, but like you said, you are not the expert, neither am I the expert. The experts who are doing the investigations, I'm sure, know exactly what they are doing. They have identified persons of interest. Some of them might as well be staff of the Citadel Hospital, and those persons of interest are being interrogated and investigations are ongoing.
So you heard that the Deputy Information Minister, Pius Hajide, giving the Ronald Reagan analogy. Was that an assassination or a coup plot? We can hear from security analyst Adams Bona, who says that this whole issue that government is raising is best described as an assassination, not a terror.
Let's say the unfortunate situation that it happens. Are we saying that if the president is no longer there, Ghana would not function? Governance is different from one person. isn't it? The president inherited a governance structure which is there by the law. And so if the president is not there today, even if the vice president is not there today, when JFK, because my point is that, can we not limit this thing to taking the life of one person? If you say you are overthrowing government, it means you are toppling either another military government or a democratically elected government.
So by inference, it could be assassination or terror plots.
Yes.
But not a takeover of the reins of government.
If you say they want to blow up, unfortunately, maybe Akosombo Dam, but to say you want to, even if you decided to attack Flagstaff House, it doesn't mean you have taken over government. We have three arms of government. We have the judiciary, we have the legislature, and the executive, isn't it? So if you even went to Flagstaff House and you flattened it, what have you done? It doesn't mean you have taken over government. And so minus, you see, the way and nature this thing was crafted, I had a problem with it. And so if you narrow it down and you look at the weapons, then you ask yourself, sometimes, you see, let's our leaders credit us with a certain level of intelligence. That's all I'm saying. And so it was not an attempt to ridicule government. Some people are looking at it as to mean ridiculing government. But you see, when you put up such a post or such a statement, and you don't come up with better particulars, if you say take over government, you see, Rawlings, I said, ended probably the coups in Ghana. And I'm saying this because the grounds were fertile. I was a boy back then. The grounds were fertile for this to take place. And you see, we were agitating because we couldn't get food to buy. There was no rain. Things were just in disarray. Today, is that what you see? Maxwell, when you were coming here, didn't you come? You need, for a coup to be successful, you need a mass movement of the people. You need civilians' input.
So that's security analyst Adams Bona insisting that what we're hearing about is can best be described as an assassination or a terror plot. He spoke to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba after a training program for some selected detectives at the police training school here at Tesano. And like I said, head of security desk Gifty Andwapia joins us in the studio with what we've gathered so far. A lot of people have described it as a hoax, and government is also unhappy about those accessions. Gifty, what do we know?
Well, Emifa, this is what we know so far. Of course, some of the information I'm going to go through some are already out there, but some are very fresh information. So we do know that the doctor and a ring of people he works with contacted a worker at the ammunition depot seeking 10 AK-47 guns at a fee, 7,000 of which was part payment, which was made. But we also know that subsequently they went demanding a refund. Our sources within the security agency suspect that this was done because either because ammunition could not be secured as scheduled or because they had gotten some of the ammunition elsewhere, which is why they demanded their money back. We also know that they found empty magazines and they retrieved them. This was all at the premises of Dr. McPalm, according to the arresting agencies. But they're saying that it doesn't make sense. I mean, our sources within the security agencies are saying that it doesn't make sense that anybody will have empty magazines without the guns itself. So they suspect that the guns may be hiding somewhere, and they're expecting that these investigations that have started will help them unravel all of these. Again, what we also have gathered is that the Take Action Ghana group, which security agencies who made the arrest tell us this gentleman was forming or had formed, that it consists of different people across several sectors of the country. Some they even say including taxi drivers and those in the security agencies. They believe that they were being mobilized to take action at a certain time, at a signal that should come from leadership of this group. And they also believe that it was supposed to happen in various parts of the country. And when I go further down, you'll understand a bit more about this point. We also know that, well, there's this... We're still working around the number of military officers involved, but what our sources tell us is that there are about 12 military officers involved in this, and some of them are actually informants, so they're not really a part of it, but they were informants that were used to infiltrate the camp and the meetings of Dr. McPalm, and there's still the alleged possibility that he may have recruited others who are off the radar at the moment, so they're hoping that investigations will unravel all of that. What we also know is that a stop list has been issued to the Immigration Service, and that and so it is to essentially make sure that those connected to this investigation do not leave the country. So essentially, a stop list is something that helps the immigration services to know that this person cannot leave the country. So if they try to leave the country, exactly, they try to leave the country, you stop them. And as government has said, this is information already out there, that they have recorded audio and video evidence available, which they're hoping will help them prosecute this matter. They also said that they've gathered enough evidence as far back as July last year that arrest could have been effected. But essentially, when you're doing these operations, you want to give it some time. Give it some time to see if there are others connected and see if you can be able to you'll be able to get those others connected. And our sources also say that the pictures that are being circulated in social media, which people are doing the challenge, I mean that the original pictures which people are using to do that challenge are just like, not all of them are true, by the way, but they say those that are true are even just like 1% of the evidence available. So I mean, I guess that is why people should be careful, how we take that information. So the other guy, which we know, one of the other guy who we're told is known as ADC, we understand they have a lot of information on him connected to the allegations they're making against these people that could put him away for a very long time. What we also know is that there is a need to build a strong case, or there has been a need to build a strong case for what the government's allegation that they tried to overtake the government. But then there was also the need not to keep them above 48 hours. Hence the current charges, which are equally grave offences. We know that the sale of chemicals, which we're told happened at Kolebu Teaching Hospital, is also being seriously investigated. And then we know that 22 IEDs were picked up, improvised explosive devices were picked up at the premises, and that these IEDs are being tested to establish its components and potency. And we've had this discussion, MFA, where a gentleman in the US, for example, built an IED with human feces and rat poison and shrapnels. And I can go on and on about how it was supposed to work. So our security sources, our sources within the security agencies say these IEDs have been picked up. They're going to be tested to find out the components and then the potency, as in how much damage it could cause. And then a little bit of a profiling of him, then we can wrap up on that. So they say that the investigations should ascertain how he himself was trained. That is, if he has been trained to build IEDs. They want to organize these investigations so they can know how he was the source of his training and how he was able to lead the manufacture of the IEDs. They want to check his ability to mobilize, how he was able to mobilize the soldiers or the military officers who are alleged to have been a part of this, how he was able to bring them on board. But the initial profiling is that makes him a dangerous person. But this information we're getting from our sources, and the investigations are still ongoing. His ability to have organized series of meetings, which government said in that statement that they presented, also makes him quite experienced, or maybe experience. Exactly. Experience may not be the best word there. And then we also know that they were coming to the tail end of the operations, hence the arrest. So usually what happens is that, this is known worldwide. When you're following surveillance is triggered on somebody, you want to follow till they are at a place where you suspect that the threat is imminent. Exactly, and then you can go in and make that arrest. So what we're told by our security sources is that after the series of meetings, they seem to have come to a tail end of the operations, hence the arrest. And he may have radicalized thoughts and been trying to radicalize others, including the soldiers who are active personnel. So these are the information that we're picking up from our security sources, MFR.
Very thorough. Thank you very much. Gifty Ando-Appiah is head of security desk here at Joy News, bringing us all that we need to know about this case. And government also today announced that they have more persons identified around this particular case. Our sources also tell us that they may be put before court as well tomorrow. We're following that closely. But still to come here on Newsnight, 2 persons have been arrested for possessing human skull at Sekondi.
The informers that they were treated, they went to Asanda Cemetery near Lebel to collect the skull for sale in Asemsido area. Unfortunately, when they were at the roadside, the youth in the community accosted them.
That's coming up after Business with George Riafe.
Hi, MFA.
Hi, George.
And I'll be getting you some news on some marginal stability of the Ghana city following Bank of Ghana's planned sale of Forex, and government moves to avert disruptions for the country's exports to UK due to the possibility of Brexit kicking in from next month. A business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials. And Fairs National Bank, we are the bank that understands your business. Fairs National Bank, how can we help you?
So everyone says I'm a Kosia filler, but it's not like I'm nosy or go out to find out the latest filler. It's just that I get 50 megabytes of data free after paying for only the first minute of every call. And so I just keep discovering stuff minute after minute. That's how come I was minding my business, scrolling through my timeline, and I found out Coco has a new baby. Oh, and last week I learned Ken won the lottery. You see, Ken is my brother's friend. So hello, look who's about to roll with the rich and famous.
Enjoy even more value with MTN Free After One. You only pay for the first minute of your call on MTN Free After One, and the rest is free. Plus, you enjoy free 50 megabytes worth of data to browse your favorite sites. Compare where, compare there. So dial *315# to sign up. We day for you everywhere you go. Terms and conditions apply.
Kingdom Books this year back to school promotion is in conjunction with Citidia Supermarket. Buy school items worth 100 Ghana cedis from Kingdom Books and get 12% discount voucher to purchase from Citidia and vice versa. School items include textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books across all Kingdom Books branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Cape Coast. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability is assured. For further information, call 0302-764209 or 0302-746101 and 0501-401050. Terms and conditions apply.
Joy 99.7 FM.
Welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, the Ghana city ended trading today, making some marginal gains after some recent blips on the interbank market. Market players are attributing this to the advanced sale of Forex that the Bank of Ghana is planning to introduce from the beginning of next month, as well as some significant dollar support on the market. Local currency witnessed some blips over the past 2 days, trading at around 5 Ghana cedis 52 pesos. However, today it's trading at around 5 Ghana cedis 50 pesos. In a related development, head of financial markets at the Bank of Ghana, Stephen Opata, tells Joy Business the advanced sale of Forex should also help weed out those who are trying to bet on the local currency.
Pretty certain that this is a tool that will help reinforce stability. And the reason I say so is that it gives users or FS users the ability to buy Forex when they need it, instead of buying Forex when they don't need it. So you are not really demanding Forex when you don't need it. But bear in mind also that on the day that you come to the auction, you have to bring the CDs on the day that you come on the auction. So it will also help with stability in the sense that this transaction has to be backed by effective demand, those who are coming to the auction through their bankers.
Head of financial markets at the Bank of Ghana, Stephen Opata. Now, government is expecting some good credit rating before the end of this year. It follows an agreement signed with the German Development Corporation to finalize the country's membership of the African Trade Insurance Agency. Speaking to Joy Business after signing the pact, Deputy Minister of Finance Charles Dubois tells Joy Business it could also help reduce the cost of borrowing going forward.
Which allows them to take more risk and also extend their commitment or investment tenor of what the amount of money they put into account. Your interest rates is directly correlated to the level of risk. It's a risk versus return. If you are seen to be, let's say, a B-rated country, your interest rate will be, let's say, 15% or whatever. If you are A-rated, your interest rate will be 10%. But so if you are a B-rated country, but you wrap around your borrowing an insurance product, then it lowers the rate because the insurance product allows you to become like an A-rated country because you are inheriting the rating of the insurance company that is, giving you the insurance product. So it definitely will help us reduce interest rates.
Charles Dubois is the Deputy Minister of Finance. The Securities and Exchange Commission has been given some indications on the possible actions that it will take against some troubled firms in the country. Some market players have been seriously hit by liquidity challenges, making it difficult to meet the needs of their customers. There are indications that the market regulator could soon take action on them. However, it is not clear for now the approach that would be adopted. But speaking at the program in Accra, the Director General, Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete, says they are committed to taking steps to protect the market.
And let me say that there are consequences when there is corporate failure. So directors must be well advised. As a commission, we are at the point where we will begin to bar people from operating in the industry. It's not going to be only an issue of taking some kind of regulatory action, enforcement, but just to protect the industry, we have to make sure that, as it is said, you are fit and proper.
Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Reverend Daniel Ogbamitete. Now, government says it has taken steps to ensure that the country's exports to the UK are not affected if that country leaves the European Union by next month. Joy Business understands the Trade Minister has issued a letter of comfort to these companies that could be affected by these uncertainties in the UK. George Bonya is Corporate Affairs and Administrative Manager at fruit and commodities firm that is Golden Exotics.
That gives us some time, maybe a few weeks, but they will expect that we will follow this up, the formal contract, which shows like the others have done, that there's some kind of arrangement, or there's a contract between Ghana and the UK, which in our case, or what the competition has to sign a continuity agreement to roll over the EPA conditions, which is the trade regime under which we are working right now. Otherwise, the other option is for the UK to unilaterally roll over these conditions, So, but we all know all the confusion that's going on.
How has been the discussion with the government? I mean, they've shown some commitment or good faith by giving this letter of comfort.
Yeah, we are in continuous discussion and communication even on a daily basis. The pressure from our buyers is quite strong.
George Bonya is the Corporate Affairs and Administrative Manager at fruits and commodities exporting firm Golden Exotics. Now, the Ghana Stock Exchange says challenges with attracting more companies is due to transparency issues with some local firms. The market has struggled to list more companies almost 29 years after its establishment. Some industry watchers have attributed it to tough entry requirements, but Acting Managing Director Ekwa Fezi disagrees with this claim.
The issue still comes back to either companies do not understand the benefits of raising capital, or they simply do not want to share with anybody. The concept of sharing, don't take it lightly. It's not the concept of sharing is so tough for people. So you can imagine, and I heard it even today, somebody saying that selling shares is very, very emotional for entrepreneurs. He set up his business, he reaches a point, and he said, give out a certain percentage to others. But then you must be able to convince the person that it is important to have value than just numbers.
That's Kofezi is the Acting Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange. Will join us on the business edition of PM Express on the Joy News channel on Multi TV at 9 p.m. today as you look at the Ghana Stock Exchange recent woes. Has it got to do with the economic environment or it is self-inflicted? The MD of the exchange, Kofezi, will also be answering questions on what has accounted for the recent challenges as well as performances on the market. It'll be a good time to look at how trading fared today. Standard Chartered Bank was down by 2 pesos to close at 16 Ghana cedis, 80 pesos. Calbank was up by 23 pesos and is now worth 84 pesos. GCB also made some marginal changes and is now worth 5 Ghana cedis, 3 pesos. And that's all for business on Newsnight. I'll also be looking at more issues about the stock exchange today on the PM Express, the business edition.
It's at 9 p.m. on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. We look forward to it.
Make a date, MF.
I will, George. Thank you. Let's take some of your comments that you've sent in via WhatsApp. I'm swamped and the console is jammed at this point. It's 0244-340-437. Some of them, Big Joe Edriso says the sexuality education is taught all over the world. However, the ages for various content varies depending on the rate of development of children in specific societies. And he asks that these curriculum content already exist in in our curriculum, though. And Kofi Sedi says, as a country, we're already saddled with teenage pregnancy. And if at age 10, we're going to teach our children how to date and engage in courtship, then we are going to have children giving birth to children. Let us hasten slowly in importing foreign concepts into our educational setup, he adds. A number of your messages, and this one also says, teaching sexuality to our children at that early age is a grand agenda to indirectly introduce our children to homosexuality. He says, since we always tell them it's strange to our culture, so they want to introduce it to our children at that early age so that when they grow, they would see it as normal to them. But you heard the NACA executive director say that systems are in place to ensure that that doesn't happen. We'll go through some more of the messages. Like I said, I'm swarmed and the system is a bit jammed there, but we'll go to it shortly. But before then, state prosecutors say the police are on a manhunt for 3 persons accused of assisting Eric Kojodria to kill 2 policemen. 6 others initially charged before an Accra District Court in relation to the crime have also been freed. The deceased policemen were personnel of the Motor Traffic and Transport Department, MTTD detachment at Kaswa, and their deaths have sparked public outrage. Court correspondent Joseph Akable reports that the charge of murder was ever maintained for the main suspect, Eric Kojodria.
ASP Sylvester Sari informed the court fresh developments have left the state with no choice but to drop the case against 6 persons. They are Isaac Emisa, Ibrahim Zakaria, Isaac Mensah, Oblete Komi, Victor Yere, and Fatau Ahmed. Key suspect Eric Kojodria, however, remains before the court on charges of conspiracy to murder and murder relating to the death of Sergeant Michael Jamesi and Lance Corporal Awa Mohammed. 3 others identified as Mike Enim, Theophilus, and K, according to police sources, are at large. Documents filed in court indicates that the 3 at all material times were with Kojodria in the vehicle when they were accosted by the police. They are also said to have sped off with him and later abandoned the vehicle at Kokrobite. Documents filed in court states that Eric Kojodria admitted during interrogation that he shot the policeman. Hearing of the case continues on October 9.
So that's court correspondent Joseph Akable's reports there. And you know that since this issue broke, my colleague Maxwell Agbagba was on the beats for us. He spoke to residents, amongst others, on this particular issue. And these persons or suspects that have been freed today, amongst them, Maxwell, whilst you were in Buduburam, you got to interact with residents of Ibrahim or neighbors of Ibrahim Zakaria.
Exactly.
And they've been telling you something about him. He's been free today. What do we know about him?
Yes, Ibrahim Zakaria, at the time that we spoke to some people who own a shop around where he works, we are told that he repairs motorbike. That's just some meters away from the main Kaswa Winneba highway. When we visited, one of the owners of the shops, they actually told us that on the day that the incident happened, it was in the afternoon, and that Ibrahim Zakaria, who has been discharged by the court today, he got a call from the prime suspect Eric Kojodria that his car had been snatched and he was in an area around Kokrobite.
Okay.
So Ibrahim Zakaria, we are told, that hopped onto his motorbike and then rushed to the scene. When he got to the scene, we are told that the prime suspect, Eric Kojodria, took his motorbike and told him, Ibrahim Zakaria, to take his vehicle back to his workshop around the Kaswa area. So at the point that he was in the vehicle, that's when he was arrested, by the police. We can listen to the lady who narrated this to us.
Well, we'll get that
sound. We'll get that sound much later. But the lady actually told us that when Ibrahim Zakaria, the gentleman who has been discharged, they got to the scene, he actually sat in the vehicle that the prime suspect was driving. So he was in the vehicle, and then the police officers got to the scene, and that was how come he got arrested in the first place. So him being discharged in court today, actually it's confirmation of what the lady narrated to us when that incident happened.
Okay, Maxwell Agbagba there, he's been on this beat all along and brings us details about one of the suspects that was freed today, Ibrahim Zakari, and what residents around that area told him. But let's head straight to Takoradi now, because the Elembele, not Takoradi, the Western region, I should say. The Elembele police is holding 2 men in custody for possessing what is believed to be a human skull. Isaac Kweku Ejapong, 20 years old, and Shamusu Mohammed, 18 years, were arrested this afternoon for possessing broken skulls at Sekondi. Joy News is learning that timely intervention by the police saved them from being lynched by the locals in the area. My colleague Ina Thalia Kwanza has been following the story and joins us on the line. So Ina, what more information have you picked up on the arrest of these 2?
Yes, so these 2 happen not to be residents of Sekondi Takoradi. I have been speaking to a resident of Asamensido where they were arrested, Leonard Lamte, who tells me that they have come to him asking that if he knows a place where they sell parts. So he has asked that what sort of parts were they looking for. Let's take a listen to what he tells me in the interview.
In actual fact, our attention was drawn to a mob action in the street around SMC this afternoon. Early or late afternoon, late morning, that is around 10:45. So my men were dispatched to the field to assist what is going on. In actual fact, they brought 2 young men at the age of 18 to the police station. So what we have to do first is to interrogate them to find out where and how did they come by all this item. In actual fact, the informants that they were treated, they went to Asanda Cemetery near Ilebele to collect the skull for sale in Asemsido area. Unfortunately, when they were at the roadside, the youth in the community accosted them and about to lynch them when the police came to their aid.
Okay, so what is going to happen to these guys?
We intend to putting them before court anyways, but we have to find out the source. Our men have gone down to look for the third person, that is Bawa, and also to visit their various units to do some search to know whether they are in that sort of business in excavating corpses and removing parts or whatever it is. According to them, they went to an old cemetery and brought the thing down to come to himself. This is what we are trying to do now.
You heard the police interacting with the media. Superintendent Foley Washington giving us details about these 2 persons that have been arrested. They were in possession of human skulls in Atelembele today, and giving us details on that. But we'll be following it and we'll give you more in our subsequent bulletins. But today, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has been out and about and has directed all government agencies or institutions to, as a matter of urgency or policy from the next procurement cycle, purchase locally manufactured toilet rolls. With 14 companies actively producing toilet rolls in the country, Dr. Bawumia says there is no justification in importing it because Ghana has the capacity to meet the demands of a majority of its people. The directive was given this afternoon at the Insao Medium Security Prisons in the Eastern region when the Vice President inspected operations of the Brompton Group, a toilet roll manufacturing company at the Insao prisons area. We'll get to hear the Vice President shortly, but let's move on and talk about this. This is an issue that most pregnant women would want to know about. If you lived with a pregnant woman before, or at least know one, you would have noticed that they have some weird cravings. Health experts say that is absolutely normal once it has nothing to do with alcohol. Obstetrician and gynecologist Dr. Paddy Aite has been given some valuable tips on drive time with Lexus Bill on Joy FM.
A woman comes to me and says the only thing she wants is beer. I say, okay, can we find a non-alcoholic version? If you can drink a non-alcoholic beer and get the taste in your palate that you need, and you're not drinking the alcoholic one that will give me problems and make your child an alcoholic, that's fine. We don't like the clay. The clay causes significant constipation. The yellow thing is actually dead with all the worms and things inside. It's not good for your health. We'll try and find alternatives through ginger. When Alasa is in season, oh, it's wonderful. So I have bought Alasa by the basket before. Stopped in traffic. Madam, Alasa, she told me the price. She sugar cane in the fridge. So you buy the sugar cane, peel it, put it in the fridge, chill it, and serve the sugar cane. So everybody and what they can tolerate and what works for them.
So that's what you need to know about these. And Hans knows very well about these cravings in pregnancies. But let's do sports now.
Do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Don't you have a wife?
Right.
Don't you have children?
Well, not every man who has a wife.
What did you
knows
have to
about.
wake up in the middle of the night to go and buy for your wife?
No, I didn't have to wake up
because of
in
these
the middle
cravings.
of the night.
You didn't?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
you were lucky.
Yes,
One
I
lucky
was.
guy. You didn't have to go and sit by the KVIP.
Not that I remember. Sometimes the memories are so, difficult to keep, and so you quickly do away with it.
You just do away with it.
You focus on the happy ones.
You see,
have a lot of happy memories. Right, so Ghana Football Association presidential aspirant Amanda Clinton says she's unfazed by the so-called Ghana Football Mafia. Details. Here's what I'm bringing you. The legal practitioner is one of 7 persons vying for Ghana Football's top job.
Well, it's just a term because I am part of the football fraternity, though people don't know that.
Yeah.
It's just a term that's used within the football fraternity that, it's just like, it's said jokingly, but in a way it's kind of true.
So
it's like people will be, the connotation is like, I'll mafia you, or they'll mafia them, meaning that it is the strength of the power and the will to overwhelm that will quash your opponents, as opposed to the strategy to develop the body that is football.
Are people mafiaing you? Are there people who say they will mafia you and have they mafiaed you?
I think, as I've always done in life, sticking to the positive and sticking to my agenda instead of being swallowed by someone else's narrative is the way to overcome mafiaism.
Amanda Clinton is the only female among 7 candidates heading into the October 25 polls. The former state attorney says being female is a non-issue.
I've never been assessed on being female, and I think because I've never thought, I'm female.
But you're female, whether you like it or not.
I'm female. It's an advantage in terms of, I suppose, the package, the look, or whatever.
Is that an advantage?
It's an advantage because it gets you in the door, but it always it also happens to be what you say thereafter or how you package the message. And I think people are always pleasantly surprised because they expect me to come with a particular approach, whereas I come very over-prepared work-wise, and I have a very firm plan.
So that's legal practitioner Amanda Clinton, and I'm sure the women will be rooting for her to become the next Ghana Football Association president.
Yes, we're rooting.
Yeah,
and that's it for Newsnight. That's Hans Mensando with the latest from the world of sports. And just before we wrap up, though, let's take more of your comments that you've sent in via WhatsApp. And this one says, please let us not underrate what our children know with regards to sexuality, dating, contraceptives, hard drugs, etc. I spent 5 years teaching kids in class 5, and I'm sometimes shocked the kind of things they know about these things at their age. That's from Saki in Mataiko. And this one from Cardinal from Oyarefa says, I'm a basic teacher and sexual education has already been taught in our schools. It is to create awareness about people's sexual make and associated consequences. This doesn't teach children to have sex or have amorous relationships. And this one from Apotuja off the Bosumchi Lake Road says, they should reconsider their decision because children within those ages sometimes cannot speak meaningfully. And we have this final one from Vida in Abosoka and says, in fact, I'm really confused and afraid this is a no-go area for children at age 5 years. And that's it for this evening's edition of Newsnight. And guess what? And I'm sure you know it, Carolina. The man himself is in the studio with Lexis Bill on Personality Profile, Awilo Longomba. You don't want to miss it. Stay for Personality Profile. I am MFA Pau. There's more news when you log on to myjournalline.com.